Sundown towns, let's talk about it. Blakely, Georgia is 61st on the list. This town is in Early County, Georgia, and this county is number 2 for lynchings in the state, with at least 24 documented. But let's look at Blakely. This Jim Crow sundown town has 7 documented lynchings. They would unalive our ancestors for trying to vote and talking back and wearing our service uniform. Well, by 1896, Blakely was already sick with Jim Crow and fits the criteria of a Jim Crow sundown town. This place dehumanized and segregated our ancestors in public spaces, separate and unequal housing and schools, threats of arrest and violence or worse. The trifecta of a sundown town. Let's learn history. Blakely was rich with cotton from our ancestors' free labor well into the 20th century. But even during slavery, our freed and enslaved ancestors put our pennies together and created a religious community in 1863. During the Reconstruction era, this church would become known as Historic Wesley Chapel AME. Because this was a Jim Crow sundown town in the making, right after the Civil War, we had separate and unequal. So Wesley Chapel was our safe space, and out of this church came Reverend John T. Gibson. He demanded our equal rights, and he was almost unalive for speaking up. In 1875, Professor E.H. Wilson opened our first school inside this church, and by 1894, Dr. William Decker Johnson started the Colored Mouthpiece, a newsletter for our ancestors. But they were watching, and Jim Crow was brewing. Check out this newspaper clipping I found. And by 1896, the first documented lynching of Sidney Grist happened for political activity. Blakely was now fully a Jim Crow sundown town. Cross burnings were almost normal in this town, and they weren't even investigated. The city of Blakely itself was creating separate and unequal on purpose. We'll talk more about this in part 2. Remember the uninvestigated cross burnings and house discrimination. They wanted to make sure segregation was in every aspect of our ancestors' daily lives to remember our place. And on December 28, 1915, the Goolsby Massacre began, with young Ulysses being attacked by a stranger. In a few days, that stranger was unalived in a battle that this stranger started with the Goolsby family. Mobs came out, and several members of the Goolsby family were also unalived. Buildings were burned down. Homes were destroyed. The hunt was on for dear young Ulysses and his brother. He'd temporarily gotten away. In the end, he got caught. Pause to read what happened. Stay tuned for part 2 when we talk about the other lynchings, the uninvestigated cross burnings, and the housing discrimination that happened in this Jim Crow sundown towns. Part 2, number 61. We left off talking about the Goolsby Massacre in 1915, the uninvestigated cross burnings, and the housing discrimination that was created in Blakely. Let's continue our learning at the start of 1919. By now, in this Jim Crow sundown town, our ancestors were fully segregated and fully disenfranchised from voting, leaving way for an all-white local government for 100 years. We were to know our place or face the consequences, like Wilbur Little. To this day, this town still denies what happened in 1919. Wilbur Little was walking down the street minding his own black veteran business. Folks in this Jim Crow sundown town didn't like that too much. They told him to take his uniform off. He refused, as he had earned the right to wear this uniform proudly. Days later, he was found unalived without his uniform. This town still denies what happened. Say his name, Wilbur Little. By now, segregation was in full swing in education and housing. It was clear that we'd better not get caught in the wrong neighborhood when the sun went down. The next few decades in this Jim Crow sundown town, the hoods made themselves known as our ancestors started to migrate north. They still had a wooden flagpole from the Civil War era placed by the Daughters of Confederate. And by 1960, James Fair was on his way to Florida, and he was riding through here. On his way, he stopped to use the bathroom. He didn't know that Blakely was a Jim Crow sundown town, and he was in danger just being there. and in 3 days he had been jailed, tried, and convicted to be unalived for something that he didn't do. There's a film about this. It's called Fair Game. Check it out. In 1990, come to find out, after legal investigation, we found out that the Hoods ran the fire department. $50,000 was wasted by the town to defend this fire chief. In the end, they settled, and 4 Hoods were fired. We lost 2 innocent babies due to the neglect of this fire department in this Jim Crow Sundown town. Check out the full video and several others about the fire department on my page. We finally took the city of Blakely to court for all its past, present, and future discrimination that created the 2 housing systems that were based on race. This case was settled in 2004. Can anyone share a first-hand account about this place, past or present? Share this video. Tag them in the comments. Let's learn.
Back here last year in November 1989, and it was brought to our attention that the Klansmen were growing quite strong here in Blakely County. And I learned to know from some of the white city officials and previous city officials, white citizens of Blakely, that Mr. Franklin Brown was definitely so. Franklin Brown is a Klan member, and he's also the fire chief of Blakely County. Located 100